Hey there, it's Stephanie Shea with Jan Spiller Astrology. Here with a live episode. I'm going to have a special guest, Elizabeth Russell, join us. So let me get that hooked up. Let's see. We're doing this during Elizabeth on, and we're going to be talking about a special New Year's event that we have planned called Create Your New Year. And here is Elizabeth. Technology is our friend today. Hooray. Welcome.
These victories where we find them. Hi.
Great to have you here. A brief introduction for Jan Spiller viewers who may not know. Elizabeth, she and I have been working together for nearly a decade. We've known each other, I calculated almost 20 years, and have a connection with my first astrology teacher, Emily Trinkus. And so we, over the past 8 years, have been doing this event called Create Your New Year, where you get the whole rundown of the astrology for the year. What's going to happen, the retrogrades, the eclipses, outer planets, new moons. And then Elizabeth has a key role of helping to synthesize all this information. We do writing prompts. She can tell you a little more about what she does with her Dreamfruit Almanac. But it's an exciting collaboration, and it really makes the astrology personal so that you know what to do with it instead of hearing a lot of dates being rattled off at you. So, Elizabeth, would you like to speak a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, I mean it's so lovely the way that this event has shaped itself over the years, and what I love to bring in is our ability to imagine ourselves into the context of this is just this living story, and we get to unpack it each year and kind of explore, and look forward and kind of preview things. But it really is like a chance to write ourselves into the story and to pause and reflect and take in some of these pieces. So I like to create, I used to say, like, oh boy, what we need to do is ask better questions. I mean, the astrology is the astrology. It just is what it is. But if we can ask the questions that actually help unlock our own personal access to what that can mean for us, then we're way ahead of the curve. And it just takes the information out of the kind of frontal lobe and drops it down more deeply into something more experiential, more personal. And I love doing that. And so that's really my whole thing with astrology, and also for sure with our event. It's been lovely to watch how meaningful it can really be for folks to, it's one thing to understand that Saturn is going to be changing signs, but to really be thinking about your own relationship to authority or discipline, and be ready for what that can mean for you. Then we actually can really meet the time with some skill and care.
Absolutely. And I'll go ahead and introduce everybody to our event that's coming right up. So it's a three-part webinar series. It kicks off on Saturday, December the 28th. And in that session, we're going to cover all the retrogrades, all the eclipses, and the North Node sign change in 2025. So each webinar is going to be 90 minutes long, and we decided to break it into a three-part series so people don't have to sit on Zoom for a long time. You can attend live all three if you like, or if you can't make one of the sessions, there's recordings being made of everything. But we really wanted to start with information on the retrogrades right out of the gate, because we are currently in these double retrogrades of Mars and Mercury. And by the 28th, we will be out of the Mercury retrograde, but we're still working with Mars retrograde. So it's a great opportunity to drop in and see how that's been feeling for everybody. And we'll have really practical tips about self-care during this time, right? So this is going to be something that you can use throughout the whole year. I'll be providing my timeline that I make that will orient you to when all these astrological events are happening, because it is a lot of dates to keep track of. So I don't know. We could chat briefly about these retrogrades, give people a preview of some of the material we're talking about on December 28th. One thing I noted is all the retrogrades for the next year are in fire signs, and some of them go back into water signs, but there's no earth or air retrogrades in 2025. So no matter what sign you are personally, this is still giving you a lot of information about how 2025 might roll out for you. So, Elizabeth, for what we're going to be dealing with these retrogrades, do you want to talk a little bit about what people can expect in the workshop?
Yeah. I mean, what we like to do, and for sure with retrogrades, I just want to comment about this this fire energy of the retrogrades, which is happening at the same time that we're moving into this Aries, this nodal shift. And so, there's just a lot of, this is a time to really be thinking about our relationship to fire. But yeah, so the workshop is really great. It's this one will be structured in a way that's pretty familiar. A lot of people come every year to this, and so if you are one of those folks who has been, kind of in our workshop, this will be a familiar format. We dig into the actual dates, and we are very concrete about what's coming and when, and then we have a chance to pause and consider. And so I will offer us some prompts for some journaling and some sort of reflection time to really integrate and absorb some of the information. And then we so it's sort of we weave in and out. There's a to and a fro.
Yeah.
In our format. And I feel like it just gives astrology can just be a really big trick for folks who aren't thinking about it full time. And so this is a way to really, I hope, create just access and ease and some personal flow, and especially around the retrogrades and with this energy of like, ooh, we need to slow down and pull in and reflect. And so really the theme that we're looking at for especially this first in our series of 3 is about self-care and radical self-care. Like, ooh, slowing down isn't just for you as a person. It's like all of us, we can really benefit. And the more we practice doing it, the better everybody does. We can just chill.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll go ahead and give a spoiler alert, is that the first almost 4 months of 2025 have some sort of inner planet retrograde. So people, you may not realize that, we're finishing Mercury retrograde. You might be aware there's a Mars retrograde. You're thinking, oh, that should wrap up in a couple months. Yes. And on March 1st, Venus is going retrograde. We'll have another Mercury retrograde on top of that. So this is really practical for planning your new year. It's not going to be the kind of year to jump out of bed on January 1st and start all your new routines. It's not going to have that feel. We're going to be much more successful leaning into what we've already started building. And we can start practicing that right now. So another thing that we're covering, of course, is the eclipses. This is something that I'm pretty passionate about, and Elizabeth is very linked in with new moons, especially with this almanac that she has called the Dreamfruit Almanac. So we will have a special new moon session on January 4th, and it's just going to cover the new moons of 2025. And I'm so happy we're including that this year, because every year we haven't taken the time to cover every single new moon. We've just covered eclipses, but we thought new moons deserve their own session. People are really into setting their intentions at each new moon. They want to know what time they're happening. They want to know the best way to set intentions. And Elizabeth is providing a very unique story that goes with each new moon. So, do you want to briefly talk about that?
Yeah, it is very unique. So I work with the Sabian symbols, which some people are familiar with, and some. So these are astrological degree symbols, and what we do, or what I do with Dreamfruit, and what we will do in the session on the 4th, on January 4th, that focuses on this, is we will look at the degree symbol specifically inside the Sabian system for each new moon of the year. And the images that are presented moon by moon by moon for the 13 lunations of 2025 really do give us a story, and it gives us a way of again, a way of relating to the spirit of the times that can be a little bit more accessible, a little, like, it can have a richness to it, because it's like a dreamscape we're really entering, and we're in it, we're inside a living story. And astrology's whole reason for existing is to be in relationship with that living story and to have a conscious exchange with what's happening above and below. And so we're really going to be unpacking some of that for 2025. Now, this is the 6th year that I've done the Dreamfruit story, and I am so amazed at how these symbols really, really convey so very much. And they create a certain kind of resonance for your personal psyche to kind of chew on or live into moon by moon. And so, yeah, I think that really, and next year, I mean, I'll just kind of preview a little bit. It's an interesting time because we're looking at, and it's so appropriate with all this Aries kind of energy and all this fiery energy for next year, where really the themes that are showing up in the lunar cycles are around individualism and what that can be, and what happens when it goes too far, and when we forget that we're all connected. And that really becomes the primary kind of thrust of the story for 2025, actually.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I have to reiterate that after I've been using Elizabeth's Dreamfruit Almanac to, to get these stories of the new moon each month, they are eerily accurate. You're just like, whoa, how did she know this? So it's going to feel very appropriate to the times, and I think it's a useful tool to see the big picture as well as apply it to your personal life. So this is really exciting for us. The third session is going to be on January 11th. All of these sessions are on Zoom. They're 90 minutes from 10 to 11:30 a.m. on Saturday mornings. The time is Pacific time, so you can apply whatever we want to make a time that we thought whatever time zone most people can make, at least in the U.S. and hopefully some of our friends overseas. And so the third webinar on the 11th will deal with outer planet sign changes, because we actually have 4 planets, plus we also have the North Node. There's a lot of sign changes coming up next year. And anytime an outer planet changes sign, it's a big shift. Just like we felt the big shift with Pluto changing signs this year, next year we're going to have Saturn change signs briefly, and then it retrogrades back into Pisces. We have Neptune. Neptune has not changed signs for
Excited about
over
Neptune.
a decade, and it's in Pisces now, but it's going to dip its toe into Aries, kind of overlapping with the same time period that Saturn is dipping its toe into the sign of Aries. So that's huge. We also have Jupiter moving into Cancer. So this is, something that you're going to want to track. If you have your own birth chart, it's cool for people to bring it to these sessions and kind of see where this might affect them in their chart. Don't worry if you don't know any astrology. It's very beginner friendly. You don't have to have a chart to attend. I'm just making it open for all levels. Some people, like to follow along in that way, but everybody will have the timeline to refer to, so they can kind of see when these events are happening. Um, so I want to see if there's anything else we want to add about these sessions. Was there anything that you want to add, Elizabeth, about what we have cooked up? Because I'm so excited to get started. I've been working on the slides already, you know.
Yeah, it's I want to say a couple things about it. Just to reiterate that this is really intended to be interactive. Really, we're wanting you to find a way to engage the themes and the content and what this information really can mean for you. And so even if you can't attend live, when you get the recording is there for you as an interactive kind of back and forth sort of process so that you can really take time. So that's one piece. And then the other piece I want to just reinforce and underline is the timeline. Stephanie Shea makes this genius timeline every year, and it is such a gift. I go over to friends' houses and it's like on the fridge. Throughout the year, this timeline can serve you. And I mean, you always know what's happening. And so this is a big part of the gift of the event is everybody who comes will have one. And so what you'll have for the whole year is your personal notes. So there'll be journal prompts and reflection around the material, around the astrology. So you'll have your own personal notes and you'll have the timeline. So put those together, and what you really have is a personal roadmap through the year to really, when things get very intense, like they have been right now, for example, with Mercury and Mars in retrograde, you can look back and see what notes did you take about self-care and slowing down with what retrogrades can look like for you, and also what the timeline tells you, like, oh, it's not just me, this is actually the weather. This is the weather. So those are two things that, to me, it's sort of like the peanut butter and the chocolate of the Create Your New Year event, and why the particular magic works so well for folks year after year. And then the other thing is just to kind of underline like how much space we have this year because we are spreading it out. And I'm just so pleased and kind of relieved around, like, in the past, I can't remember. I want to say we've done this in 3 hours. We've covered
Yeah, and
all of the
it
astrology
was a
for the whole
lot.
year.
Like people were very into it, so they all stayed. But at the end, I think everyone felt kind of tired out, and we just thought this would be a lot more digestible.
Yeah. It's really nice to have this kind of spaciousness and to know that you can have the recording, afterward to just really return to and to take your time. I mean, I feel so committed to the integrative layer of this work. Especially, I mean, astrology can really bounce off your frontal lobe and just feel like a lot of abstract ideas unless you have, somebody skillfully, like Steph's reports, like really helping you connect it. But this way of like really settling and taking time, taking 90 minutes for just the retrogrades and the nodes and the eclipses, which we will do right away on the 28th, and then taking a full session to really look at the lunations and to really let lunar astrology show up for us, and what our moon ritual is going to look like this year, and what is the story of the year told by our wonderful grandmother moon. And then to really take the time to look at the larger context, this cosmic story of the planet, the outer planets moving and changing signs. I feel like this is a pace that suits this year because of all these retrogrades. But in general, I'm just really excited about having this sort of breathing time around some, kind of heavy. And I'll also say that with the sign changes, with everything we're already seeing, as you mentioned, with Pluto moving, it's so wonderful, and how perfect our intelligent sky story is setting us up for success by beginning a time of great change with retrogrades, with reflection opportunities. And so I'm feeling like anything that gives us that kind of space is a real gift.
Yes, because there is a lot of change and uncertainty being stirred up right now. The other planet I forgot to mention that's changing signs briefly next year is our friend Uranus, that will be dipping into the early degrees of Gemini. So that's big news. Uranus only changes signs every 7 years, so it's going to retrograde back into Taurus, but we're getting a flavor of that. That's a very revolutionary energy. Uranus and Gemini is going to be full of a lot of new ideas. I think a lot about new technologies. So there's going to be parts of the year that will feel very fast moving. So that's all the more reason to take the slow moving energies at the beginning of the year and get ourselves all shored up and rested, because there will be times that things will feel like they're going fast. So this is our big exciting plan for the new year. We can't wait to get started. In the past also, we've kicked off our New Year webinar in January, but we thought, let's start at the end of December, because there's a lot of astrology going on right now. And by December 28th, I feel that everyone will be ready to start talking about it. We'll be a few days away from the calendar New Year. You know, of course, in astrology, we feel like the astrological New Year starts more around the equinox, when the sun moves into Aries. That to me, you know, around March, I think it's usually the 20th or the 21st. But remember, this year, around that date, we're going to be in a Venus retrograde. So keeping in mind, even that new year could have a slow beginning. But I think it's good to look at the calendar year, because that's what a lot of the world is using.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to figure out our strategy for that structure, right? Yeah. And so it feels like a good way to enter the year. I'm thinking it of easing into the year together. Gently and lovingly.
Gently.
Yeah. Yeah. And the North Node will be changing signs in January. So that's happening pretty soon after the calendar year changes. It's on the 11th. And the nodes move backwards. They're the only thing really, point in the sky, moving counter to the order of the zodiac. So it's moving from Aries into Pisces, which is quite interesting, because we mentioned that Saturn and Neptune are at the end of Pisces. So there's going to be some very interesting things to talk about related to the North Node. As you all know, that was Chance Spiller's passion, and it's now become mine. So we will have a lot of information to give you about that as well. And I try to pride myself on drama-free astrology. There will be no fear or gloom and doom projected into this webinar series. We're going to talk about what you can do, what the astrology will support. There's always things that you can do. And this is just one of the conversations that's etched in my brain that Jan and I had. She's like, don't just tell them what the astrology symbolizes, then tell them what they can do, so they feel that they have their power. That's the whole point. So you'll be, I think, feeling inspired, you know, for the new year.
Yeah, I feel like that's every year what people say who participate, is that they feel encouraged, they feel ready, they feel fortified and heartened. There's pretty much no way to have an astrology session of any kind with Stephanie Shea and not feel that way at the end. It is a big part of your gift. And yeah, I love that is what we get to, how we get to frame, you know, some of this collective, I'm calling it weather, but you know, to really see how to meet it, and of course how to meet it with our own, from a place of centeredness and from a place of personal authority. And yeah, it's really good. It's really good. I feel like I want to also just mention again the dates, just to be really in the spirit of careful
Yes.
communication. So we're talking about 3 Saturdays in a row. And these are, as Steph said, they're 90-minute sessions, 10 to 11:30 Pacific, and we'll start on the 28th of this month, and we'll focus on the retrogrades, the eclipses, and the nodes. And then on January 4th, we'll have a whole session dedicated to the moon. And when you mentioned Jan Spiller, that's what made me want to just reinforce that you are in extremely good hands with this conversation about the lunar cycles of 2025. Stephanie has this incredible experience and it had this mentor and teacher whose whole body of work really brings us into awareness of how to relate to lunar cycles in a meaningful way for ourselves. And I spend a lot of time focused on the lunar cycles each year with Dreamfruit. And so that session is going to be a very special one. There's no question it will be unique and special and meaningful to everybody. And then the third session in the series will be on the 11th, and that will be this kind of cosmic story. And so it's a 3-part series. You can sign up for one or any, and you will get the recording, and you will get the timeline that Steph makes every year. So just to kind of reinforce like what the format is, and it's going to be really lovely. You know, I want to mention too, like my mom, I'm a second generation astrologer, and she really taught me a lot. I mean, so much about the language of astrology as this living language, as the language of the sky. And, you know, her whole thing was like, look up. We need to be in active relationship with the cosmos and to see the above and below in play. And I feel like this series gives us a chance, you know, every year this event gives us a chance to really do that. But this year I'm excited because we're really going to have time to think about this as a very integrative, very personal relationship to a story that is always happening, always unfolding.
Yes, I think you're really masterful with these stories and finding the stories in the Sabian symbols that go with each new moon. You're really good with you're getting people's imagination activated and helping them integrate this astrology into their personal life. So you're bringing a lot of magic to this workshop, Elizabeth. And I think that this, you know, anyone who hasn't met you yet will soon become a fan. And I'm so grateful for all your wisdom and experience. And I think the last thing to mention is that the link to sign up is in the link tree of this Jan Spiller, also in Elizabeth's Dreamfruit Maven, also in Stephanie Shea Astrology. And so I think you can't go too wrong finding the way to sign up. It's pretty easy sign up process. And I don't know if I have anything else to add. I think that we're ready to meet everybody on December 28th and get started with our New Year journey of astrology and personal self-care.
I do want to mention that once you sign up, you will not write right away, but you will be getting in advance the PDF of Steph's astrology, of the timeline of the astrology for the year. And so that's something that you can start seeing and looking at and thinking about right away if you want to. But
yeah. Yes,
I'm,
it takes maybe a few days. I sort of send them in batches. So I wait till I have a little batch of people to send them to instead of doing it one by one. I don't have the fancy automation. It's probably available, but I'm doing things still a little bit old school. So I just watch the registration come in. I keep my list and I think, okay, now I'm sending out this batch. And, you know, it works, especially during these double retrogrades. Just reverting to some old-fashioned techniques, so useful. But you know, you don't always have to have everything be fancy and automated.
I am so with you. It's like, oh look, real people offering this
yeah,
offering this service. Yay. Analog humans are behind the scenes supporting you in meeting the new year.
You will get some automated emails, but then I supplement them with, hey, also, hello, I'm the human behind all this. So yeah, it's a combo. But I feel like that we've given a pretty good overview here, and we really hope that we get to see you soon. If you have questions or comments, drop them in the comments below, and we'll help you out.
Can't wait to see everyone there. Thank you.
Yes,
So
thanks
good.
for being here, Elizabeth.
It's really fun. Yeah.
Okay, have a good day, everybody. Bye.
Bye.